So President Trump is promising a number of trillions of dollars worth of stimulus programs. I think I've heard 1 trillion, I've heard 2 trillion. The latest round I heard was $6 trillion. I thought I'd do a video to talk about how I first discovered the concept of what a trillion really was in my real life. When I was working on my PhD, I had a machine learning algorithm. Well, not really machine learning, it was a search algorithm to find a graph with a certain property. And it was a branch and bound algorithm. And I wanted to estimate how long that algorithm would take to run. I knew I couldn't run it as it was, but I wanted to get a starting point. And so I ran what I estimated was about a billionth of that program to time it so I could estimate how long the entire program would take to run. And a billionth of the program took about 1,000 seconds to run. And I got really excited because 1,000 times a billion, that's a trillion, but it's only a trillion seconds, right? It's not a trillion minutes or a trillion years, it's seconds. Seconds seem to go very fast, right? If you're 5 seconds late going to something, nobody would seem to care, right? So it didn't seem like a whole lot of time, and so I got out my calculator. I thought, hey, maybe if I get a very powerful computer, maybe if I speed up the program just a little bit, maybe there's something I can do about. Maybe I could run this and have the answer before I graduate in 3 years, right? I got out the calculator, I put in a trillion, I divided it by 60 to get minutes, divided by 60 to get how many hours that was, divided by 24 to get how many days, and then divided by 365 how many years, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought I had miscalculated somewhere. I started over again. Damn! And I discovered that a trillion seconds from now, it will take us into the next ice age. And my first thought after I realized that calculation wasn't a mistake was to think about the computer in the office I was living in. At the time I had lost my apartment, I was living in my office, so I was thinking about the computer in that office, in the whole campus being buried under feet of ice and snow, and humans are long since extinct, but the computer's still working away at it, and then some future species of life on Earth digs up the computer and goes, hey, look at this. Somebody discovered this graph from 30,000 years ago. So I started to envision something like that. I didn't think the office would last 30,000 years, so I then started to think about the computer floating in space, somewhere where it can get a lot of sunlight, right? Or maybe bury it underground where it can get geothermal energy and just run for 30,000 years, right? Although depending on, if it's a Windows kind of computer, it's probably not even going to last 3 years, right? So that might be the bigger challenge then. But that was my first real life experience with a trillion. I've since improved that program somewhat, but it's still going to take 4,000 or 5,000 years to run. I recently wrote machine learning for a computer game, and I estimated it would take about 1 billion seconds to run. The nice thing about the program I have now is that it's a cumulative machine learning, right? It's using machine learning to tune parameters and such. And so if I eventually get a more powerful computer, or I find some way to speed up the program, or we discover some theoretical computer science result like P equals NP or something like that, then I could update my algorithm, I could update my hardware, and I could just continue where I leave off. So I don't expect it to actually take 1 billion seconds. I expect to have that program ready before I get my first Social Security check. Which I probably will get, except that when I get the check, it might buy like 2 molecules of gold, right? History shows that's how we usually handle public debt, like that, right? So that's a trillion. The other way I visualized a trillion one time was when we had President Obama, and he was talking about his $1 trillion budget deficit. I tried to envision 1 trillion silver dollars, either Eisenhower dollars or maybe the Morgan dollars, and I envisioned 1,000 coins lined up in this direction, and then another trillion in this direction, perpendicular to that, and then the whole stack being 1,000,000 coins tall. And I tried to envision what that would look like, and I remember it was much taller than the world's tallest buildings, like the Burj Khalifa, Taipei 101, any of those buildings. Right now I'm trying to envision, now that we're talking about social distancing and how everybody has to be 6 feet apart, I wonder if there's enough space on Earth, if we had a population of 1 trillion, to practice social distancing. I'm going to guess not, just because of how much 1 trillion always seems to surprise me. Um, Later this year I'm going to celebrate my billion-second birthday. Billion seconds is a long time. And 1 trillion is just incomprehensible. So I wish we humans didn't invent a number system that allowed us to write numbers so shortly, right? Imagine every time you wanted to talk about 1 trillion, you actually had to draw like a trillion tally marks, right? Or maybe not that many, but it shouldn't be shrunk down to where 1 trillion is 12 digits when 1,000,000 is 6 digits, right? It doesn't really do it justice. I wish that to write the number x, instead of having the log of x number of digits, you had something more like the square root of x, right? Something like that, right? That way you couldn't get behind these numbers and lie to people and make it sound like it's, oh, I'm going to spend $1 trillion on stimulus, like it's only 1,000,000 or 1 billion, right? That's how I feel about the number system. Thanks for watching.